I'm gonna start with, because it's morning, and I usually in the morning like to begin with an opportunity for a little bit of a chest opener. That's how I'm gonna start today. I'm gonna do a butterfly with my legs and a little lifting or elevating of the spine so that I can get the shoulders to open. Because I like to sleep curled up in the tiniest of balls with one arm in a strange position. And this often leads to having like a feeling that one of my shoulder blades doesn't belong or other things like that. And this usually solves my problems and makes everything feel a little better. So I'm gonna use a blanket for this purpose today. Now what I want is the blanket to be long enough that it covers from about just above my navel up to my head. So depending on how tall you are, you might be able to fold your blanket like that, which is folded 1, 2, 3 times, or you might have to leave it a little bit bigger. And then you can roll it in a very tight cylinder, and that will make it a little bit more, depending on the blanket you have, it'll make it a little bit fluffier or a little bit more substantial. So if you have a really tiny or really thin blanket, you might want to roll it really tight. With a blanket like this is kind of an average thickness or a thicker blanket, I like to roll it more like, you know, when you were a kid and you would make those little paper accordions to like fan yourself with, like that. So kind of folding it over on itself so that I've got more of an accordion. Now you can fold them 1, 1, 1. It doesn't matter, but as you know, that kind of width, if that makes any sense. Hopefully it did. And then I put that down the length of my spine. Now you can do a yoga block underneath your upper back and one to support your head. You could put, if you have a yoga bolster or some pillows or something like that, you can use a throw pillow. That would work as well. So anything that you've got, you can make work. Okay, so the other things I've got ready for my practice today, I've got a strap handy. I'm going to use that a little bit later. And I've got 2 yoga blocks. If you don't have any yoga props, no worries. All you have to do is lie down on the floor. You're going to be just fine. It'll just be whatever practice, you know, just be what it is. And it's okay. Yoga practice is good no matter how we shake it down. So I'm going to do these. You join me as you like. All right. So lying down over the blanket. And then for the blanket, I like it to come down to just below my last rib. If I'm using the blocks, then I prefer those to be up higher so that my shoulder blades rest on the block, but not much below that. And then pillows depends on the pillow, right? You just make it so it's not abusive. Now, if I keep my arm a little bit closer to me, and I'm not hugging it up against my body, but simply like letting it fall where it would naturally fall if I were standing up. If I do that, then the release of this pose is all in the deep shoulder stabilizers. So I'm not going to feel a whole lot of sensation, but I can trust that it's doing the right amount. If I want to feel more of a stretch in my pec muscle or in my chest, then I can take the arm and drift it out farther. So if I drift the arm out like a T, that's going to pull a little bit more on that big chest muscle that attaches my arm bone to my breastbone. And so I can get a deeper stretch if I'm feeling like that would be beneficial. I usually go for shoulder stabilizers because that's my more pressing issue. But you might need the opposite. And so once you're settled in, we're going to pause and stay a while. This is the aspect of yin in our practice today, is getting settled, softening, and then just riding on the edge of sensation. So I feel the pose. There's a little bit of sensation in the inner thigh for me. There's the sensation of my shoulder falling backwards. There's a little bit of a back bend sensation because my upper back is propped up. And so noticing those sensations, if any one of those becomes too intense, then I modify the practice accordingly. Again, all of us have to come to the pose where we are right now, not where we wish we were, or where we think we might be in 6 months. We have to meet the pose right where it is. It sounds kind of silly to say stuff like that out loud, but think about all the things in your life that you have for later or for some other time, right? Like, it occurred to me not that long ago that I have china in my cupboards that I rarely ever use, and what if I just ate on that china? What if I just used the nice silverware? Like, what would happen? So in the same way, like, are we holding some aspect of our yoga practice for later? And can we just meet it where we are right in this moment? Now, the other thing that Yin Yoga gives us a chance to do is to be present for whatever is going on inside of our brain, which can sometimes be a lot of distracting nonsense. So what I will suggest is we're going to stay with this pose for about another 30 seconds. And so just bring your mind back to your breath, or to at least just being present in the pose. We'll try for 30 more seconds. How's that? With my exhale, I'm going to take my legs out of this position, so just bringing my knees together. You can do that just by kind of straightening the legs, or you might want to do like a little bit different movement. So that is a lot of external rotation, and sometimes it feels nice to sort of vary that or alter that. So you could, either with the knees bent, or even just a little bit straight, you can kind of move one knee or the other into a little more the opposite movement. And then when you're ready, you're going to let yourself roll to the side, and we're going to slip out the whatever it was that was underneath the back. And come on back. So notice whatever there is to notice. Now when I use the blanket, I still feel like the center of my spine is lifted, so it almost, there's like an impression left behind. And it feels really nice to me to sort of rock on that impression. But if I use the blocks or even a pillow, my back feels almost like it spreads out, you know, horizontally on the floor. So there's a different, they're both is different. So I'm inclined to do some different movements. So noticing what your inclination is and sort of trusting that process. You can rinse this out however you like. All right, so we're gonna do a banana pose, and to do that we're gonna stretch out as long as we can, and then we're just gonna bend in one direction like a banana. So it's not a crescent roll. It is a little bit lighter on the curvy end of the spectrum than a crescent roll, although some crescent rolls look like this. So it's just, I've taken my legs a little bit to the left, and I've taken my torso a bit to the left, so, or sorry, to the right. So now my left side is stretching out nice and long, my right side is curled in a bit, but both my shoulder blades are still touching the floor and both my hips. So if you have the arms overhead, you'll get a little bit more sensation through the armpit, upper, like outer shoulder area. If you bring the arms a little more like a cactus or even a T shape, you'll take away some of that sensation and maybe allow a different thing to happen in the shoulder girdle, a heavierness, you know, or a more centered feeling. If you just leave one leg on top of the other, or one leg beside the other, that'll give you a layer of sensation. You can try crossing the outside of the curved leg. So in this case, because the left side is curving, is the longer side, I would put the left ankle over the right ankle. And then as you let the hip fall, you may feel there's a good deal more sensation along the sort of outer thigh, IT band area of your leg. So you can sort of salt this pose to taste. And then allow yourself to get heavy. We're going to stay for about 2.5 more minutes. Again, with the yin, we're just allowing things to happen more than we're being pushy about it. So we move the body until we feel something, and then relax into that sensation. I like to pay attention to the breath, and quite often it's useful to me to do a breath technique like an ujjayi breath, for example. But you don't have to. You can simply just deep, rhythmic, smooth breath would be good. Last like 40 seconds or so here together in this pose. So just for a moment, just notice the sensation of breathing. Notice if it's different on the left side versus the right side. Take one more big breath. And we'll just kind of meander back to the center. And I like to pause for just a moment when I get there and notice. Is there a difference between the left hemisphere and the right? And usually for me there is. Like, it feels like my left side has sort of gotten stretched out a little longer. Now if I were to measure, I'm not sure that it would really be longer. In between sides, I like to either do this little windshield wiper action or bring the knees in and do more of like a little hug and a massage. So you can see which one is better for you. Sometimes both is nice. Why choose? When you're ready, we're going to stretch out again, and we'll do the other side. I'm going to take about another 10 seconds here. Yeah. Usually there's a point where my body sort of says, yep, now is the time to do the next side. But I have to be really tuned in to the kind of subtle moment of that. And I don't know how to describe it other than that there's just a sense of sort of my nervous system relaxing or letting go a little bit of its vigilance. And so there's an ease that happens in the body for me. So start to see if you feel any of those. And when you find that moment where there's kind of a release or a little bit of a softening, then let that be your cue that it's time to move to the next side. So I've curved myself around, and I'm just checking in. Now this is a different side, right? So I'm trying the leg across, the leg not across, the arms up, the arms a little different. Just looking for the spot that feels interesting today. And not too pushy, but just the right amount of sensation. That halfway mark is a good moment to sort of check in, come back home to the breath. Loosen up anything that feels like it's ready to get loosened up, or go a little deeper if it feels like that's happening or ready to happen. Let's check in. And then act accordingly. So we've got 2 more big breaths, yogis. And then we're going to come on back to the center. And again, you might check in for a moment, just see how things went. And then if you like, you can do some little movements, a back massage, some windshield wipers. So we're going to do a little bit of some core muscle activation to sort of transition. But within this core muscle activation, we're also going to do a movement in the leg that's designed to sort of both activate and release the psoas. The psoas is this big hip flexor muscle that lives really, ooh, there's a hole in my shirt, that lives really deep in the body. So in order to get to it, I would have to take off my abdominal wall. All of the internal organs would have to come out. I would have to move the diaphragm out of the way a little bit, and then I would be able to see this muscle. But it interacts with the outside of the body at the front of the hip. So we're going to do some things that seem a little weird, and I'm hopeful that it will make sense in a little bit. So what we're going to start with is a little bit of movement in the pelvis and the core part, and then we'll put the leg in. So if you bring your feet to this position, which looks a little bit like a bridge pose, this is called constructive rest, right? So I've got my feet resting on the floor in a position where it feels like my legs completely relax. So if my heels are too tight, it might feel like it sort of arches my back. If my heels are too far away, it'll feel like the legs want to collapse in some way. So you're just looking for the spot that feels like your legs are able to relax. And some people need the legs to go in and touch each other. For me, that creates inner thigh strain. So I just try to find the spot where my knees stay balanced, okay? So find that with your legs first. And then we're gonna do 2 movements in the spine. So the first movement that we're gonna do is actually, we're gonna arch the back. So we're gonna tilt the pelvis toward the thigh in the front so that the low back arches into a bigger back bend. Then we're gonna go the opposite direction and we're gonna curl up. So we're gonna let the navel come in and curl the shoulder blades up off the floor. Now, if you have a tendency to pull with your neck, you're gonna press your head back into your hands so that your neck stays stable. So we're curling from the abdominal muscles, right on. So that's the movement we're gonna do with the spine. So arch and curl, okay? Keeping the head pressing back, arch and curl. Okay, so with that, we're gonna arch, and then as we curl, we're gonna pick the leg up. So we're gonna start with the right leg, and then as we come back down, we're gonna stretch that leg all the way out straight. Arch, curl, bring in the leg in, stretch it. You can ride the floor with your heel. Arch, bring it in. Okay, we're gonna do that one more time on that plane. Arch, and bring it in. Now for just a moment, place the foot back down in constructive rest. Take a moment, you can let go of your neck. And then just notice if there's any subtle differences in sensation. And this is gonna be a more deep sensation, so you may not notice anything at all, right? But does it feel maybe like that femur bone is a little deeper in the hip socket, or that there's a little change subtly through the side waist? Just notice. So we're going to do the same thing, but on the other side, right on? So we're going to arch the back to start with, and then as we curl, we're going to bring that left leg in, put the heel on the ground, stretch it all the way out, arch the back, reaching through the foot a little bit, turning the toes up, and then bringing that leg in, ride the floor with the heel, arch the back, maybe flexing at the ankle joint might be useful, curling in, arching the back, curling in, We're going to do it one more time. So reach down through the heel, arching the back, curling in, and then we're going to put that foot right down beside its friend. Now, we're going to work with the leg at a different plane. We're actually going to take the knee outward and bring it up like that, okay? And then bring it back. So we'll go all the way out straight for the arch. Then we're going to bring the knee up to the outside elbow, and then we're going to bring it back, okay? So from constructive rest, the first thing we'll do is arch the back, so there's that. Then as we curl in, we're going to bring that knee towards this right elbow. So right knee, right elbow. And then as you get your heel to the ground, stretch it out, flex the foot, arch your back. And then curl in, bring that knee towards the outside elbow. We're going to do that one more time on that plane. And then towards the outside elbow. Now bringing that foot down into that constructive rest position, noticing any shifts or changes. Same thing's going to happen on this left side. So I'm going to arch to start with. And then I'm going to bring the curl and that left knee towards the outside of the left elbow. Then letting the heel come down, then stretching, and then arching the back when I get all the way out straight. Bringing the heel, or bringing the knee in rather. Heel to the ground, stretch the leg all the way out, then arching the back at that point. Bringing the knee to the outside of the left elbow. We're going to do that one more time. Stretch it all the way out. Foot flexed if that's helpful, arch the back. And then bring the knee in as you curl up. And then we'll put that leg back down. So we're almost done with this, yogis. But I want you to just check in one more time with both hips, just see if you notice any differences. Now sometimes you can have an imbalance, like the right psoas muscle might be tighter than the left. And sometimes you'll be able to perceive that difference, like one side of the back arch is a little higher off the floor than the other. So anything that's there, notice, without judgment, just notice what's happening. Now the last piece of business that we're going to do is we're going to bring the leg, instead of down the center to the outside, we're actually going to bring the leg across the body, okay? And then to do that, we're going to also add a little bit of a twist to this, okay? So we're going to arch the back. Right leg is going to come towards the left elbow. Then I'm going to come down and stretch that leg out. Arch the back. Right leg towards that left elbow. Heel to the ground, stretch the leg out. Arch the back. And then one more time, bringing that across. And then coming back down, letting the foot rest. Ooh, that one for me has some really interesting activation. So I really notice sensation there because it's getting more into the obliques, which have a little bit more, a little more nerve fibers to communicate to me with. So we're going to do the other leg. So just starting with arching the back, and then we're going to bring that left knee towards that right elbow, stretch that leg all the way out, arch the back, left knee towards that right elbow, bring it all the way down, arch the back, and this is going to be my last one, where I'm going to curl that in, and then bring both legs to the floor. And then one more time, just noticing the sensations available. Notice if you accidentally pulled on your neck too much or used your neck muscles more than you should, and you can give yourself one more little back massage or windshield wipers, which are really lovely. So we're going to, this is just nice all by itself. So we're going to come up to all fours when you're done here. I'm going to secure my hair once again, and I'll join you there. Now once we get to all fours, if you're already there, you may have already begun, but we're going to just move the spine through these kind of, again, these pelvic tilts, arching and rounding. Notice the difference when gravity is pulling us a different direction. So focusing on the movement of the pelvis and noticing how that changes the chain up the spine. Like, how does that impact the spine all the way up to the neck? Coming to what feels like a neutral position, we're going to curve to the one side. So I've got, essentially I'm bringing my left shoulder or my left hip a little closer together along that left side waist, so I feel the stretch along the right side. Same idea, go in the opposite direction. Just kind of swinging my rib cage out to the side as I go. We're going to do that one more time on each side. Now, depending on your inclination, you can either hang out with a child's pose and do some movement, you can go into downward dog and do some movement, or you could take yourself into a standing forward bend. I'm going to essentially do all three, just a couple of breaths in each. But if you have one pose you don't like, you can skip that one. Each pose that you choose to do, kind of taking a moment to sort of explore the way that pose feels today and your relationship to the body in this shape as it is now. Now, eventually, we are all going to meet up in a mountain pose. But that mountain pose can happen in the next 4 breaths or more as needed. So if it takes you a little longer to get there, so be it. We're just going to all eventually arrive there together after wardrobe malfunction adjustments and mat stickiness and whatever you might need to do to get yourself kind of in preparation for more of a flow. Now, mountain pose has become a touchstone pose for me in this time of COVID and general uncertainty in the world. So, in my world anyway, I really, you know, life is always uncertain. The truth is, anything could always shift at any time, right? But we do get sort of lulled into these sort of senses of security when, for a period of time, life unfolds in a predictable way. So when we're faced with a radical shift to that predictability, then we can, hello friend, we can find ourselves in a position where there's a lot of uncertainty, right? A lot of stress around that uncertainty. So what mountain pose asks us to do is to stand tall in our own sense of being in the moment, even when things are uncertain. Like, regardless of what the ground is doing, mountain pose asks me to just stand tall and to adjust my body to do so, right? So if I'm on a slightly uneven surface because I'm out of doors, then my mountain pose is going to be slightly uneven, but I'm going to meet it with the same sense of presence as when I'm standing on a surface that's more level, okay? So we're finding ourselves here in the present, in a pose. And take 2 more breaths. When you, if you're not arrived there yet, this when you do, just spend a couple more breaths. Notice the different things that happen as you stand. So I'm going to take a big breath and I'm going to stretch my mountain pose out a little longer, maybe even a little bit of a back bend, and then fold forward. Now, at this point, you could just hang there or you can come up to this little halfway point and lengthen out, right? So it takes a little bit of pressure off the hamstrings. Fold forward. We're going to step back with the right foot so that we wind up with the left foot in a lunge. Now, while I'm there, I'm going to use some blocks under my hands. You can also just put your hands down on the floor. All right, so I've got left knee right over my left ankle, my right leg is in the back, and I'm going to play with the movement between the hamstrings and the hips on both of my legs, right? So I'm going to lift up onto the tiptoes or the ball of my foot in the back leg, and I'm going to see what happens if I try to straighten out my front leg. Then I'm going to come back to the sense of the front knee being over the ankle and push back through my heel on the back side. I'm going to add a twist this time. So I'm going to come up onto the ball of the foot, straighten out my front leg, add a little bit of a twist to it, and then come back and angle that back out, right? Take everything back to the edges. And one more time, kind of lifting up, adding that twist, and then coming back. And now I'm going to step myself back into down dog. If for whatever reason down dog doesn't work for you, you can either go directly to the floor or step up and wait that out in a mountain pose. So feeling the difference between the right side and the left side. Coming forward into a plank. If you want to add the vinyasa, you can lower down halfway or all the way, come into your version of a back bend. And then come on back to your downward dog. Now I'm going to take that right leg up, sink a bit through that left heel, hook that right leg up over my back, if it feels okay to do so, and give my foot a little bit of a spin. Then I'm going to step this right foot as far forward as it goes in one step, lean into it so I can bring my left foot up, and then come up halfway. And it doesn't matter where I landed on the mat, because once I'm all the way up to standing, I can adjust my position back to my mountain pose, right? So some people will be able to easily step up to the top of the mountain. Some of us don't. We just go where we go. So again, finding mountain pose for just a moment. Can you feel a difference in the sides or hemispheres of the body, the legs, the hips, maybe even your mental attitude? Taking a big breath again, I'm going to extend up and maybe do a little baby back bend. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, come up halfway. And then exhale, fold. I'm going to step back with my left foot, to remember which one it was, and find that lunge. And again, I don't want my knee to be past my ankle here in the front, and I want the, heel to be in the air in the back leg, and enough space that I feel like I can feel the opportunity to stretch forward and back. So the knee is moving forward but not past the ankle, and the heel is moving back. So then I'm going to lift onto the ball of this foot, see how straight my front leg wants to go, and then come back to the lunge. I'm going to add that twist to it. So coming up onto the ball of the foot, letting myself twist open a bit, and then coming back. One more time. Letting a little twist happen. Coming back. And then stepping back into down dog. Now, if you want to skip this part, you can simply come onto your belly onto the floor. Depending on how sticky your mat is. That might be the better part of valor. So with this down dog, I'm just going to take a moment to move my shoulder blades around on my back a little bit. Shake out my neck. And then we're going to come forward. You can maintain a plank for a bit, full plank, or even a modified plank. Still gives you the core work. And when you're ready, you'll lower all the way down, or if you're following along, we'll just do one more big breath. Or a small breath, as the case may be. And then come all the way down. Now, laying on the belly with the hands quite high, so that if I drew a line down from the top of my shoulder, my fingers would be just a tiny bit higher than that. We're going to come into a cobra using the back muscles and the legs and glutes and not pushing with the arms. Right on, the arms are here to help support us, but we're powering this pose from the back body. So draw the collarbones a little wider and then come on back down. We're going to do that twice more. Lift, collarbones a little wider. Come on back down. And it's really important that I'm doing all the lifting from my back muscles and not from the arms, okay? So we're lifting, and then coming back down. Now, I'm going to slide my hands as far down as I can, and still be sort of lined up with the ribs. So the bottom of my rib cage is right about there, so I'm putting my hand as close to that edge as I can. Waist is probably a good marker. Now, when I come all the way down, the heel of my hand doesn't really want to touch the ground. That's okay. It's going to touch in a second. So fingers are spread open, work through the legs, lift, and as I lift, now my palms will plant, and I can draw the collarbones a little wider. Okay, and then come on back down. So you just have a different position. You can even come up off your wrist a little bit by coming onto the tips of your fingers. And then again, lifting, pressing the palms down if possible. Adjust so that your wrists aren't going to be mad at you later. Come on down. We're going to do it one more time. Lengthen through the legs. Lift, draw those collarbones nice and wide. All right, now we're going to scoot as far to the right side of the mat as you can. And we're going to take this right leg up and over so that the foot comes onto the floor, and then just push off with your left hand to come up to a seated position. I may or may not still be on your screen. I think I am. Then I'm going to drop this leg open to the side. This becomes the pose known as Janushirasana. So this is a forward bending pose. We're not going to round the back just now. We're going to see if we can keep a little sense of the back bend, a little sense of the cobra, and bring the pelvis forward, and then take the pelvis back and let the back round, okay? So sitting up tall, kind of create that sense of a little baby cobra as I bring the pelvis forward, and then leaning back into this, let my back round a bit as I draw the pelvis back. We're gonna do that one more time. Sit up nice and tall, memorizing that sense, that broad open chest of the baby cobra. Can my pelvis tilt forward? The answer might be no. And then we're gonna back this thing up and lean into it. Okay, so now we're going all the way back over, bringing that right leg back. And scooch in the other direction. Left leg comes over, following it up by sitting. Could I have done that by just switching legs? Yeah, but it wouldn't have been as much fun. So all of that rolling around is a good time, y'all. All right, so now I've got myself in the opposite Janushirasana, but on your mat you can do it the other way if you want. So we're gonna sit up tall, find that little sense of that baby cobra, lean the pelvis forward if it's willing, come back, lean backwards, tilt the pelvis backwards to draw the navel in. Can you feel the sense of lifting through the navel that happens, the almost natural Uddiyana that happens when we do that? So the pelvis tilts forward, back is in that little baby cobra shape, and now the pelvis tilts backwards, and can I feel that kind of upward or scooping action that happens automatically? Last round. So bringing the pelvis forward, that little open-chested baby cobra shape, if it allows for it. You can bend the knee more to make it happen. And then rounding ourselves back, feeling that upward scoop. And then we're going all the way back around with the left leg. And onto our belly. And we're going to, one more time, bring ourselves through a little cobra. And take it back to down dog. So if down dog's not your jam, you can go right to the front of the mat. If you love a good down dog, take this moment just to feel it out with each other. Then I'm going to take this left leg. If it feels okay, hook it over the back, sinking the right heel a bit. And then, a few little circles with my left foot. And then step that guy forward as far as it goes, and one step, lean into it. Right foot comes up. Come up halfway. Hold. And then we're going to come all the way to standing. And find your mountain pose one more time. always interesting to me is, does my mountain pose change as my practice unfurls? Because it often does. And I often find more ease, especially at the front of my hip. As I practice, there's a little less of the tendency to arch my low back. And I find that kind of nice. So we're going to shift all the weight into the right leg, pick up the left leg, and bring it into whatever balancing pose you feel like you want to do today. I'm going to do a tree, but you could do a dancer or an eagle. You could do mostly what is falling over and attempting to balance. That's also fine. I'm going to take a nice big breath. I'm going to pick my left leg up and I'm going to step it back into what I think is going to be Warrior Two. It could turn out that it's not precisely Warrior Two, and I'll play with it. So what I want with Warrior Two is I don't want my hips to be positioned in such a way that the front leg collapses inward. So depending on the flexibility at my hip socket, I may have to keep the hips more at a diagonal to hold this leg steady. So I'm holding that knee over. The back leg, I'm pressing into the floor nice and firm, and then I'm going to do a reverse warrior back toward it and a side angle over the edge. And so choosing, if you need to move the feet so you have more stability. I'm going to try to feel this length through the side waist. Both sides have that length, but they're different. Last one. Now pausing with this side angle for a moment. And then we're going to straighten out the front leg, kind of rotate the ribs a little if it's available, unwind, rotate a bit, unwind one more time, rotating as much as you feel like you like for a triangle. Taking one more big breath here. And then we're going to bend the knee. I'm stepping my left foot up to the top of the mat. A little less graceful than I wanted. Come up halfway. Exhale and fold. And then come all the way to stand and give yourself a stretch. And then find your mountain pose. And notice again, we did stuff on the one side we haven't done on the other side yet. Is there a sense of asymmetry? Shifting the weight over to the left leg, bringing the right leg into whatever balancing pose you had selected last time. I've been reading a lot of books about trees lately and their actual relationship to nature and everything else, and so I'm feeling the need to embody a tree shape, but you do you. We're going to take this leg and pick it up or let go of it if that's the case, and step back and hopefully land somewhere near a Warrior Two, feeling out and adjusting the relationship of the pelvis and the low back so that the front leg and the back leg can remain stable. And then coming back to a reverse or a moon warrior and over into that side angle shape. So we're going to do 2 more little rounds of that. And then allow the side angle to sort of bloom open a bit. Straightening out the front leg a bit. You can move the hand as you like. You're going to rotate the ribs, kind of bring them open, maybe straighten the leg a little more, let it all come back a little closer to side angle. Open the ribs. One more opportunity to kind of bloom into a triangle as you see. Fit. Work. we're going to bring both hands to the floor and step ourselves back into down dog. Again, your tolerance for down dog, you'll decide how long to stay there. We're going to bring ourselves back to a child's pose. Now you can do laying all the way onto the belly version instead. Now, if child's pose is a really super comfy pose, you can stay with that instead of doing this last seated forward bend. If you're up for a seated forward bend that allows us to have a more symmetrical experience rather than right side, left side, then you can come to a sitting position. Now, we're going to do straight legs, but they can be either in a V or closer together. Okay? And again, we're going to play with the notions of the pelvic tucking and tilting action, that cat-cow action. It might be helpful to put a little bit of support under the legs, especially if you find that your pelvis does not move very well when you're sitting on the ground. You can even put pillows under the legs so that the knees are quite bent. A little blanket can be useful if you have a little bit more motion or a little bit more ability to move here. So we're going to bring the pelvis forward, allow however much of a tilt forward the body goes, and then we're going to bring the pelvis backward, leaning back even, and then feeling that kind of upward scoop. And then moving forward, broadening the chest, however far it lets you go. Coming back, scooping in. And then one more time, moving forward and coming back to scoop. Now, if you're a big fan of folding all the way forward until your face touches the ground in this pose, you can let yourself, or touches your shins as the case may be. Or you might come to just sitting back up nice and tall, even bending the knee a little more to allow the pelvis to find a neutral position. Take 2 more breaths. Now, we're going to transition ourselves into Shavasana, into a final relaxation. A blanket underneath the legs or a pillow under your legs can be really nice for Shavasana as well, because it creates just the slightest little bit of a bend at the hip, and so it allows a little more release in that psoas muscle we've been talking about. Or maybe it's just that I've been thinking about it, but hopefully I talked about it at least a little bit. So we're going to lie down. Once you get lying down, you might take a few moments to move, settle, make a pillow for your head, get out your eye pillow, whatever you need to create a sense of your ability to let go and relax here. Now, I like the blanket really close to the hip when I use a blanket, so that when I stretch the legs out, there is a sense that there's a fold right here at the hip joint, so that my low back, which has a tendency to arch a little more when my legs are extended, is in a neutral position. For some people, the blanket needs to be lower down or even under the knees in order for that release to happen. So choose appropriately for where you think that should go. You can experiment if you don't know, and then allow your arms to be whatever, like maybe you like a cactus arm today, or you want to put the arms all the way overhead. For me, generally, I like to snuggle the shoulder blades into neutral, kind of find a position where it feels like the top of my shoulder falls backwards, and then let my arms rest there. I spend a lot of time with my shoulder rolling forward and have since I was about 10. So, the old body habit that I want to gently allow to unwind every day with my practice. And then take a nice big breath and let go with a big deep. And even though it's tempting to skip this pose is all about allowing our nervous system to really integrate everything we've done today. So if the legs stretched out doesn't work, you can put your feet on the floor. If you feel too vulnerable in this pose, you could lie on your side or even on your belly. But give yourself permission to lie still for just a few more minutes. Allow yourself to really relax into the moment, even if the moment is a little bit uncomfortable. There's a funny little meme I see go around that says, "Today I will be present in the moment, unless the moment is horrible or sucks," or whatever the word is, "and then I will eat a cookie." Which is hilarious, but in fact, a little painfully true, that we often distract ourselves from the not so great. But it's part of being human, and can we relax into just this moment, even if it's a little uncomfortable? Can we meet it with softness and kindness? Take a moment just to notice the breath again. And then take a breath all the way down to your tiptoes. And let go with a really big and then wiggle your fingers and toes. Hopefully you heard that sigh from all the way over there. Stretch out your hands and feet. Give your wrists and ankles a little jiggle and a little movement. Give everything a nice big stretch. One way and then the other. And then curl up into a little ball. Give yourself a little hug and a back massage. We're going to roll to the side, or you could rock yourself up if you're feeling it. Come on up. Oh, I think I might have lost you guys. So we'll end this class. Live people might be gone. Taking a nice big breath and a big deep sigh. Namaste, yogis. Enjoy the rest of your day.